Hey, Paulina.
Hello, Lars.
How we
Ye-
doing?
I'm good, thank you. And you are back from your hackathon. I can imagine you're a bit tired after
I am
48
so,
hours.
I'm so tired. And it's actually been 2 days since I came back, and I feel like I have like a second day hangover still.
Because there was alcohol involved or because there was a little sleep involved?
I would say a combination of both. I
Okay.
think that because like it was like a 48-hour hackathon, but we stayed there for like 3 days combined.
Nice.
And I think in 3 days I drank 2 beers, so it can't really beat the
No,
alcohol.
no, that doesn't sound about right. Even
Even
though
though I'm
you're
a
old,
really
even
poor
though you're
drinker.
old, I don't think. But how was it? What was the best and the worst part of it?
I would say that it was insane. So for everybody listening out there, so I run an AI agency company, and we do a lot of what you call like the term right now, or the buzzword right now is vibe coding, where coders or people that can't code, they actually use AI to code, and that's what we do a lot for our clients. And we wanted to do like a go from idea to a launched product within 48 hours. And we're talking like a launched app in the App Store
Wow.
in 48
Wow.
hours. And that's something back in the days would take half a year or something like that, right?
Hmm.
And I would say we almost did it. I would say we came to like 90% of the product.
Okay. Good. Nice.
It is out in test flights in Apple Store, so people can't really download it yet, but we actually think that it's going to be out next week.
Nice.
Um, so I would say
That's
it
impressive.
was a success in terms that we came so close, but it was just so much fun. It was so much fun. I love it, and we are going to do it again.
That's
We're going to do it
amazing.
again. We have ideas for two hackathons next year. Which one is
Nice.
actually going to be a luxury one.
The luxury one.
Yeah.
Okay. You have to keep me updated because everything that has the word luxury on it immediately piques my interest.
I would say, yeah, I'm fortunate enough to know some people that runs I would say a really nice hotel. It's not like high luxury, but it's like
Ooh.
on the beach, like an old, what do you call it? Like farmers
A cottage?
house or like cottage or whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it. That's been like renovated completely, like really well. And it's like really like off the beach on an island here in Denmark.
Why is that the first time I'm ever hearing of this? I've known you for 5 years.
Yep.
Okay, send me the deeds.
And they are coders as well. They bought the hotel because they did some exits, and they actually said like, hey, let's do a wipe code hackathon at the hotel, and then charge for it.
Oh,
And I was like, yeah, I'm in. So I'm gonna do that next year. But I would say, Paulina, in terms of the topic of our podcast, right,
yeah.
which is company culture.
The last time I
This,
checked, it is.
yeah, okay, good points. For me, so we were 4 people in a vacation home or summer house in Denmark.
Yeah.
3 out of 4 is so it was me and my 2 co-founders, and then a fourth guy. And I've had this company, I've known these guys for maybe 5 years, but we only had the company for 2 or 3 months now. So it's still a
Okay.
very new company. And it was actually a great learning. Everybody should do this. Like everybody that wants to do something with other people should lock themselves in a vacation home for 3 days.
Okay.
Um,
Why?
it, sorry?
Why?
Because you learn so much. Yeah, I wouldn't say that anything surprised me. So this is not, this story I'm telling now is not gonna turn out to be like a big takeaway, because I wasn't really surprised about how
Yeah.
these guys are, but you actually get to see also people when they get a little bit annoyed, when they're
Mhm.
pressured, how they work when you are really, really tired at night. And like, we were like coding up to like 2 seconds before we did the launch on the last day. And everybody was like screaming, like, like, okay, can we do this? Can we manage to do this? Can we do this? Please change this. This is not working, because we were testing at the same time, and so on and so on. So people are like really pressured. Like, and one of the guys, he just said like 10 minutes before, he just said like, can everybody just shut the fuck up for 5 minutes, please? And he's like, I was like, whoa, what happened there?
Yeah, you're right. This is really interesting, to get to know people in such a context and in such a short, condensed way. And I remember that I've heard from multiple customers in more mature companies that if they hire a new C-level person or senior leader, that they will invite them to at least a dinner, but usually even actually a full weekend to really get to know them before they hire them. And that probably comes from this exact dynamic.
Hmm.
Cool. I should tell Eric that I need to spend we need to to huddle ourselves up in his hut in the Alps.
Yeah, it's hunting cabbage or whatever it is. But it was really nice. It was a big,
Nice.
like, it was a
That's
great learning, but
amazing.
I would actually say one of the best things from it. So we did, in 48 hours, I did 12 live streams,
Wow.
combined about, like, I think I calculated to be like 11 hours of live streaming, where I was just sitting talking to people, or we were talking internally and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the cooler thing was that so many people tuned in and had questions and was really interested in what we were doing. And we were getting like LinkedIn messages and text and DMs and so on. And people like, oh, it looks so cool. I want to be there as well. It looks so cozy. You guys are awesome, and so on. So
It's so
getting all
cool.
of that feedback from people was really nice.
Oh, I can imagine. Lovely. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I would say that's almost worth being tired for.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, I'm tired now, and I have a Christmas lunch tonight and one again tomorrow. So I think Sunday, I'm just going to pull the plug.
Fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough. I have my goddaughter visiting over the weekend, so there's probably not going to be a lot of sleep there happening. Going to happen
Nope.
there
I
either.
wouldn't imagine.
She is so cute though. She's so cute. She gets up really early. Um, and then
How old is she?
she is turning 5 in January,
So cute.
and she's the cutest little girl. Huge brown eyes, blonde curls, and she's just I could just eat her up. Um, and then she gets up and she usually wears this unicorn tutu dress thingies and she's a girl's girl, right? All the way. Glitter and rainbows and unicorns. That's all her. Her favorite color is rainbow.
Of course. That's
And
everybody's favorite color.
and she would stand next to our bed the morning at 6:30 or so and just stare at us until we wake up and then say, just wanted to check if you're really here.
So cute.
so cute. And then she jumps into bed with us, and then she just stays there, tells us stories, and it's really cute.
I love it. I
Yeah,
love it. Okay, Paulina, are we ready?
absolutely. Let's go.
And for everybody just listening in there, it's like this is the second episode, right?
Yes.
So if you didn't hear the last episode, then please go back and listen to that one. Um,
Lars and I did get sidetracked a little bit by
yes,
this topic
as always.
because it's such an important topic. And last week we spoke a lot about the actual impact and power that middle managers have to change culture within a company,
Yes.
and to really embrace that power that they have for good. Obviously, we are always
Uh-huh.
advertising for you to use your powers for good. Um, and so I'm really excited, Lars, to dig into this a little bit deeper.
Yes. Are we ready?
Always.
Let's do this. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Cultures from Hell. We are picking up where we left off last week, and we are talking about the immense power to affect a company culture that middle managers have. And joining me, as always, is my wonderful, wonderful co-host and the co-founder of Culture Code Foundation, Paulina. And Paulina, we're just gonna pick up where we left off, right?
Yeah.
So, can you start by sharing a moment where a culture effort went wrong, but became a turning point?
hmm that was pretty early when I started working with cultures. Um, because at the beginning we always said, okay, we need C-level buy-in. This was for us the most important topic if we were approaching customer work. And I still believe that it is crucial to have a C-level buy-in if you want to address overall cultural topics in a company, at least as an outside consultant. Um, but I've changed my view a little bit about what's the most important lever within the work that we're doing. So this customer very early on, they wanted to fix. I'll be as bold as to say it was a toxic culture, and they wanted to do a company wide new values rollout, and so they wanted beautiful posters. They actually even agreed to offsite workshops, um, and um, still weren't working very participatory when it came to that. So it was much a lot of top down decision making in this process, and we very quickly saw that the team leads that they had within the company, and actually also part of the C-level, they weren't equipped to walk the talk, and people smelled that hypocrisy and that inconsistency and inauthenticity instantly. And they didn't move at all, which is completely understandable, right? If your manager and your manager's manager don't role model what they want to see, then why should I do it? It's complete bananas. So we decided to slow down and start with equipping managers, middle managers. And that's one of the reasons why we started to develop our second part of the Culture Code Foundation, where we are focusing so much on coaching managers and leaders to really get them into the habit of changing their daily behaviors and setting team norms and voicing out loud expectations. And that really changed everything, and especially our approach, because now with our clients, we're very focused, and we also tell them that they need to start where trust is closest to the mass of the company. So you need to start with middle management. You need to get them on board. You need to get them equipped. And you also need to give them the feeling that, um, or the freedom to actually change stuff. Um, because you want them really motivated to live up to the power that they have and actually change something. If they are under the impression that no matter what they do, it's going to be bombarded or from the top, then this is going to, it has a tendency to work very slowly or to fail completely. So it needs the combination of bought in C-level that also is working on doing their best to model the culture that they want to see, and a really well-equipped middle management.
Let's change up the question and turn it around. So if you as a middle manager wanted to guarantee their culture efforts fail, what would they do? And what's the opposite approach?
Um, I would say there are two things that are fail-safe. First of all, if you copy-paste someone else's approach to changing culture in your team, because it has to be authentic, it has to fit to who you are as a person, it has to fit to your values, and it also has to fit to the situation that you have in the team. If you're just taking over a brand new team that has been working under the same manager for the past 6 years, that's a completely different story. If you are hiring your own team, and it's again a completely different story if you're being mm, promoted from within your own team. So you suddenly turn from peer to manager. So all of those situations demand different things and different approaches. And if you do something that doesn't align with what you need or what you stand for, yeah, I think it's pretty clear that this is doomed to fail, right? Um, and the other thing that I see time and time again is just to focus on your own approach or your own values and expectations, and push it down, top down, like a rule book, and instead of co-creating it together with your team. Because if you co-create it with your team, you can have completely different buy-in. You have a completely different commitment to the norms, the rules of engagement, the behaviors that are set in the team, right? Because if I'm part of creating that, it's mine. It's not someone else's. So um, clearly, if you want to avoid those fails, I would say invite your team to work with you on this. Really, really seriously involve them. Ask curious questions. Try to figure out what drives them, what motivates them, what you can do to really strengthen the culture in your specific situation, and then iterate, 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 iterate. You probably I know you know. I know you remember. At Soulmate, we iterated our culture once every 6 months, and everyone had a say in. Huh? So ask your team what great looks like. Ask your team what they need to feel safe. Build the norms together and own it together.
Mhm.
And then you have buy-in that lasts.
And I would, honestly, I can't remember if we actually touched based on this the last time. But you mentioned here, you mentioned about the thing about like people that used to be peers and then somebody get promoted and so on,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
One thing I see, I would, I wouldn't say that it fails every time because it doesn't, but it fails very often. Is especially in sales, where both of you and I come from, that
Mhm.
people promote the best seller. So the one that sells the best oh, he or she must be a great leader, but then everybody's going to sell a lot. But just because you're very good at selling doesn't make you a good middle manager or a team lead, right?
No,
And I see that so often.
I think, and this is, I think it's a huge problem, not just in sales. I see it fail across the board.
Yeah.
Um, because there is this misconception, if you are really strong and really good at your factual job, that you can then also teach that to others and make them as brilliant as you are. But leading people requires completely different skill set.
Hmm.
And most companies that promote people don't even invest in teaching people how to lead. So, and you would never put somebody on a sales job, for example. I mean, we've also seen examples like that where that happens, but usually you don't put people on a factual job without training them to do that job or knowing that they have the skill set to do the job well. But with leadership, it happens all the time. And if you don't teach people how to lead well and how to teach what they have to offer on the factual side, that also very, very often leads to, okay, I'm just going to do it quickly myself because
Hmm.
I know best anyway. So why should I coach you into becoming better at your job? I already have all the answers, and it's so much faster for me to just quickly solve the problem on my own. Um, so that is actually something that we see a lot. And I can only say to every company out there, make sure that you really look at training your people um, when you want them to succeed as leaders.
You just described me, Paulina. I get, and even my beautiful, perfect girlfriend says that to me, that I I sometimes like my, what you call it, like my patience span is so, it's like, let me do it. It's much easier. I'm gonna do it much faster, right? If I have to show something. And
And it's
that is something that I'm working on so much. Also, when it comes to this, and we're actually taking in a, what you call, like an apprentice or
yeah.
something in the company from January, and I'm gonna be the one who actually is gonna work with him. And I was like, fuck, shit. I need to remember to be patient.
It's something that's really difficult for us as human beings because we find it very hard to um, value the future reward as higher as the acute pain that we're feeling. And the acute pain is, I need to solve a problem, I need to solve it fast, I have the answer, blah, blah, blah. The future reward would be to train your people to solve the problems without you in the room, so that you have more people who are capable, who can do this, who are really good at their job, who can score the goal without needing you on the field.
Hmm.
But it's a hard skill to learn, and that's why you need to teach it.
Exactly. Okay, Paulina, what are some conversation formats or scripts that help team leads correct behavior, set expectations, or
Mhm.
reinforce culture without feeling like, in quotation marks, the bad guy?
Mhm. Um, First of all, I would say go back to last week's episode where I talked about a lot about how to make implicit expectations very explicit. Because if you have explicit expectations and behavioral norms, then you can hold each other much better accountable to those. Um, and then if you see a breach or want to correct behavior or reinforce something, then I'm a huge fan of radical candor, just without being blunt, but being in a very kind way, be very, very honest what's going on and call people back to like saying, um, I know I have very high expectations, but I have them because I believe that you can reach them. And let's figure out what you need to get to that point. And also be very clear that if certain behavior, if it's that bad, doesn't change, what the implications are going to be. So I've had this with one person who was who I hired, and I was completely convinced that he was going to be brilliant. And during the onboarding phase, I started to realize, it's just not. He's just not living up to the expectations I'm having. And I went back and I coached him over and over and over again, and I recalibrated the expectations. I kept telling him, okay, my expectation is that by the end of next week, you are able to do A, B, Z. What do you need to get there? And then after the next week, we would meet and say, okay, what worked? What would you try differently next time, etc. And then I would also add my observations. I would say, because I obviously in those kind of situations, you need to be very close to the people. You need to really figure out what's going on. And so I would say, okay, I noticed you hesitated when X, Y, Z came up. What was going on in that situation? And so it was really focused on trying to bring him up to the level that I needed to see from him. And I also told him, okay, this is still not where I need this to be. And let me be very honest. You're in your probation period. If I don't see a significant uptick, then this is not going to work out. So you also need to be very, very clear about the consequences. Because otherwise I feel like you're failing the person in front of you, and you're just not give them enough urgency to work on what they're doing. And again, it's also your job to help them get there
Hmm.
until you believe that they won't be able to get there overall. Then obviously it's time for decisions. But so being radically candid and coaching in the moment in a very short and frequent way is critical from my perspective. And I also think that feedback should be a habit, not an event that happens once or twice a year. I think it should be something that is built into everyday interactions with your team. There can be super small moments. It doesn't have to be a 1-hour coaching session, right? Just use those short questions that I mentioned earlier. Can already have a huge impact.
And I know that we talked about like in last week's episode, like, and again, everybody listening out there, if they don't know what we're talking about, please go back and listen to the first episode of this 2 parts series here. We talked about like being a middle manager, that you kind of in between, like you have
Yeah.
like the management above you and you have your team below you that you want to protect and so on. So middle managers often feel squeezed, right?
Yeah.
What's your best advice for leading when direction from the top is unclear?
Don't wait for clarity. Create micro clarity within your own team and try to keep all the noise out of your team, because that is also your job, your prerogative. I always say use an anxiety filter. Share only things that you know won't create anxiety within your team. Because if your team feels anxiety, they're in the fear zone. And we've talked about this over and over again. If you're in the fear zone, they can't deliver their best work. And creating micro clarity, what I mean by that is to really define how your team will operate, your rules, your rituals, your behaviors, and also figuring out how you're going to approach a certain situation. You can say, for example, I know that some things are still vague from the top, and I believe that it's going to make a lot of sense to anchor ourselves in doing ABZ. Let's work together on finding the best way forward. what do you want to add to my idea? How can we make my solution even better? Um, and that earns a lot of trust from my perspective.
And what does navigating the psychological contract mean in this context?
Um, I think in moments like this, the psychological contract becomes even more relevant because the psychological contract is a lot about creating safety in the team. Again, let's go back to the last episode. Um, and in times of upheaval or unclarity, those rules can get breached more easily because people do feel more anxiety. And um, if you or anybody else in your team breaks the contract in those times, that can go one way or another. It can completely break the contract that you're having, or if you actually call it out and make sure that people return to the contract and that people make repairs for breaking the contract and take over ownership for breaking the contract, including yourself, and especially when you broke it, then um, this can be a jumpstart into an even deeper level of trust with your team. So um, own it, apologize, repair it fast. And if you didn't breach it, make sure that the person who did breach it owns it, apologizes, and repairs fast. Um, because if you don't do that, then the cynicism is going to rip your psychological contract apart.
And then and I don't know if there's kind of any trends or anything when it comes to like culture. But if there's any like, or are there any like emerging leadership or culture trends that gets you excited right now, especially when we talk about team leads?
Um, a trend that worries me, honestly, is that fewer and fewer young people want to become leaders because it is because they don't really see the value in it. Because it's more work, not significantly more money usually, and it's a lot of pressure. Um, so that is worrisome because we're gonna miss junior leaders that bring in more emotional maturity or knowledge or whatnot. And but what I do see on the positive side with some of the leaders, unfortunately not all, but some leaders are realizing that emotional intelligence is a muscle, not a trait that you bring in automatically. It is something that you can train, and it is something that you don't need therapy skills for to create a high trust team. You just need to practice noticing things, naming things, and navigating emotions, both your own emotions and those of others. Um, and I think if that spreads, that can really change up a lot of things for
I
both
didn't
leaders and individual contributors.
I didn't know that,
Oh,
that that is the trend, that most young people don't want to become middle managers or leaders.
yeah.
I know, from my own like, my own kids and other kids and so on, that they see today's workplace as completely different, like, right?
Mm,
That they want to like have their own saying in things, and they're very independent. They're very independent,
nice.
and we just stress that compared to my generation at least. But that is actually a worrying trend because we
Yeah.
need them to want to become leaders and become
Yeah.
strong leaders.
Yeah.
And like you say, they have such a fundamental different view on things today and leadership. Like you're saying, they're much more emotional engaged, and they want to be there's this trend that's been going on that's that we're not putting work first, we're putting family and spare time and well-being first and so on. And that is something that the new generation is very focused on. And if they don't become the leaders, then we don't get that into the workplaces.
Uh, Even worse, I don't think we will get it into society, because we're not just talking about leaders taking up leading positions in companies, but also in society, right?
Yeah.
So I find this a very worrying trend, and in Germany at least, it's really stark. It's an immense drop. Um, I think something as high as 40% less people want to become leaders as like 5 or 7 years ago. It's
What?
Yeah, it's a really worrying trend.
That's pretty insane. Okay.
Mhm.
Maybe
At
then
the same
that's.
time, to everyone listening out there is a lot of potential for job security when you do want to become a leader. And there are very few young leaders out there.
I,
Might
I
be a
was just
way.
I was just about to say that maybe there's even a job for me when I become 80 or something like that. I have this like secret dream of becoming like the old naggy guy at the office when I become like really old.
I mean,
Oh,
why not?
okay, Paulina. So I wrote down the next question. I'm actually very curious about this one because I don't think we ever talked about this. Again,
I'm now
you
curious.
transformed like into working a lot with company culture because like kind of a really passion for you, and you actually made it a company with Eric. But who influenced your view on culture the most, and how do they show up in your work today?
Um, I think I've had multiple influences. Mm, I've also had, so one of the influences that I would definitely want to mention here are the bad company cultures that I saw, and how they how they affected and impacted people. So that's definitely one of the important things that I see. And then for me, for sure, um, an important influence was Eric, because with Solvemate, I saw a completely different kind of culture for the very first time. And um, I think that Eric is capable of holding up mirrors with sometimes brutal precision, but always with kindness. And another person that really influenced my view on culture, 'cause that basically happened at the same time, is actually my husband, uh, who had founded his own company and who had a very close knit team. And to see how he was leading with real empathy, with real concern about the people that were working with him, um, was extremely beautiful to see. And he is definitely also the one who taught me that consistency is crucial for strong cultures.
And let me just chime in on giving credits or love to Eric. Like again, self-made is where we both met each other. Um, so I worked under Eric as well because he was the CEO of the company, and like that culture was like insane, like really insane. And it was extremely transparent.
Yeah.
And maybe I don't know if this speaks into culture, but one of the things that I really liked in Selfmade, among a lot of things, was everything was written down. Like there
Yeah.
was an SOP for everything you can imagine, even like buying cake on Fridays or something like that, right?
For everyone out there who doesn't know what SOP means, it's a standard operating procedure, and
Yes.
it basically gives you clues and hints on how to follow a certain process.
Yeah. So you and for me, the great thing, it was like there was never anything that you were like, or you couldn't get an answer to.
Yeah.
And also, even if there was like a conflict, there was an SOP for conflicts. This is how you do it. And
Yep.
and again, like let's say, Paulina, you and I, and of course we will never disagree on anything. But let's say we really deeply disagree on something, right?
We would still follow that.
And sorry,
We would still follow that because we've
yes,
learned it.
because if you said to me, "Oh, I don't want to talk to you," I could just say like, "But you have to. It says in the SOP,
Yeah.
right?"
Uh,
And
and
if you still didn't want to talk to me, it says in the SOP that we have to find a mediator,
yeah,
right?
I know that a lot of those things might seem obvious. And I also know that a lot of people will think that writing everything down or documenting everything feels either nerdy or policing or whatnot, right? And I understand that point of view. At the same time, and this is, I think, what I've been reading for throughout the last 2 episodes, making things explicit
Yes.
and documenting things makes things very explicit. Gives people so much more freedom of peace of mind because they don't have to think about all of that all the time. They don't have to keep track of everything. Everything is there. Everything is obvious. Everything um, is accessible, and you can really trust that people will behave based on that. And
Yes.
I see an immense power and beauty in that. Because it makes it for me it was an incredible way of approaching culture, but I think this is also part of what made Solvemate such an incredibly special place to work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm convinced of it,
Yeah.
actually.
So I'm gonna chime in on Eric 100%. Um, what do you know about culture that you wish you have known like 5 years ago? And 5 years ago is about the time we met each other.
Yeah, yeah, in just a little bit more than 5 years ago, a little bit less than 5 years ago. Um, I would say that most culture problems are actually feedback or communication problems in disguise. Because they arise when people don't feel safe to speak up, or they arise when managers avoid hard conversations, which then usually leads to lingering underperformance. Um, all of those is not per se a people issue; it's a courage issue, and it's a communication issue. And you can, and the beautiful thing is, you can train both.
That's a very good one. I actually like that one. Okay, Paulina, like again, we have to encourage everybody to go back and listen to also the last episodes and this one. And if any managers is listening to both episodes, is there one thing from this conversation or these conversations that should kind of remember? What would that be?
That you have much more power than you think you do in terms of forging culture, and that you're actively shaping culture every day by the behaviors you model. Um, I like to say the worst behavior that you accept is the behavior that becomes the standard. And if you don't speak up in those moments, you also form your culture. So, because your voice is a message and your silence is a message. So choose wisely which way you want to go and really think about the impact that you are having on the culture in your team. and don't wait for permission to do it. Just do it. There was probably 3 or 4 things. Sorry.
And I love it. And again, I want to be brutal honest when I say this. My takeaway from this conversation, and that's one of many reasons why I love we do this podcast, is that I get to do takeaways myself, right? And for me, when you say that you have so much power to affect people out there. That is my takeaway. We talked about it last time when I told you the story about like the girl that comes to my classes for
Yeah.
training
Yes.
and how I actually impacted so many things in her life. Um, and my takeaway is that I very often forget that I have an effect on people,
Mm.
and I have to take that seriously. Also because I know and I don't want to sound very self-promoting when I say this. I know that, and on my test, like I have what you call a TT38 test. You've taken that one
Yes.
as well, Paulina.
Yeah.
And in that one, it actually says that I'm an influencer.
Okay.
And I know that people keep telling me that. My girlfriend keep telling me that I'm the kind of person that I can just motivate people. I can just get them to follow along. Like I'm a really big motivator. And with that comes a big responsibility, right? Because
It
you
does.
have to remember that you have this power. So if you can get people to follow along and you can motivate them, then just don't bullshit them, right? You have to follow that.
Yes. And I would even actually expand this a little bit because every single one out there has more power than they believe they do.
Hmm.
The way you approach other people, the way you speak to other people, the way you mm, handle difficult conversations, if you choose to approach people with kindness or with skepticism, it always has a ripple effect. It always has an impact on the person you're talking to. And I think we should all be much more aware of that, um, because
Speaking
it can create a better world if we all were to choose kindness and clarity. And and I agree. As leaders or influencers, you have an even higher responsibility, in my view. Um, but I also want everyone out there to understand and to know that you can change things. Every single one of us can change things, no matter your formal position.
and speaking of that, Paulina, do you remember what we promised to do last time before we ended the episode? What we promised to go out and do that day?
Yes,
Smile to everybody.
exactly.
And let's do that again today. Okay, Paulina, one last question. What's one cultural behavior you think every team should adopt tomorrow morning, or maybe this morning? If you're listening in on the morning, what's one cultural behavior everybody should adopt?
Mm, I think you should start your next team meeting with the question, what's one thing that we as a team are not talking about and that we should be talking about? And then especially as a leader, sit back, hold back, don't voice your opinion too quickly, and potentially even sit in the silence until people start talking. And that can be where culture work begins.
That awkward silence.
Mhm. And it's
Okay,
so hard. It's so hard to sit through it, but it's really worth it.
it is really hard. Okay, Paulina, before you and I go out and keep smiling to the world, where can listeners follow your work and learn more about the Culture Code Foundation?
You can follow us on culturecodefoundation.com. You can find us on LinkedIn, and you can also personally find me on Instagram. And The same goes for Lars, and we will put all the social media handles in the show notes. So feel free to check it out. And especially, as always, if you want to share your personal story in the podcast, either live or in an anonymous way, please, please, please do reach out. We love to hear your stories.
Yes, just reach out. We are available. I was about to say 24/7, but again,
24/7.
I need to sleep. So don't reach out. Wait till tomorrow if you reach out to me. If you want to reach out today, right, Paulina? Okay, everybody listening in, thank you very much for tuning in to Cultures from Hell. And I was just about to say we'll see you next week, but Paulina,
Oh, right. That's right. This was
we're
the
actually
last
going on
episode of
Christmas
the year.
holidays now.
Yes, this was the last episode of the year.
Yes, it was.
Lars, we have done 39 episodes in the
Yes,
year of 2025. That's pretty impressive.
that is actually quite impressive. And yeah, next time you see me, let me just calculate here. You're probably going to see me with my arm in a sling because I have an operation next week in my
Oh,
shoulder.
wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
I'm going to spend, and I timed it. Everybody keeps saying to me, like, why did you time your operation just so close to Christmas? Isn't that stupid? But it's
Nobody's
because
working.
then I can't do anything. And I can just sit back and tell everybody, like, feed me, give me my presents.
So let's see if people left you to starve over Christmas because of that. Okay. Well, in that case, good luck. And I know we're going to talk, even if
Yes.
we're not going to talk on the podcast, but we're going to talk. And to all our listeners out there, thank you for listening to us this year, and see you again in 2026. Have a
Yes.
beautiful holiday season, and let's all work together to make 2026 a kinder, more positive year.
100%. Merry Christmas, everybody.